The scent of burnt sugar and regret hung in the air, a metallic tang of champagne and envy underneath. Ilara stood frozen in the doorway of her sister's palatial Hamptons kitchen, a dish towel clutched in her hand like a lifeline. The laughter from the poolside, a bright, brittle chorus celebrating her sister Bianca's latest gallery opening, felt like shards of glass against her skin. "Ilara, for God's sakes, it's a brie, not a bomb disposal unit." Bianca's voice, sharp with champagne and condescension, cut through the hum of the Sub-Zero. "You've just smushed it on the marble. It's useless. You're useless in a kitchen. Honestly, you're useless anywhere that requires a modicum of social grace." The word landed not with a shout, but with the clean, final click of a lock. Useless. It echoed in the silent, spotlit kitchen. The catering staff averted their eyes. Ilara's mother, arranging canapés with surgical precision, offered a thin, apologetic smile that said, "Don't make a scene, dear." "You know what?" Bianca sighed, a performance for her unseen audience. "Just go. Take your earnestness elsewhere. You're dampening the vibe." There was no dramatic slam of the door. Ilara simply placed the dish towel on the immaculate counter, walked past the gilded laughter and the chlorine blue glow of the pool, and got into her sensible sedan. The drive back to the city was a blur of streetlights and a cold, clarifying emptiness. But it wasn't emptiness, she realized. It was a silence so profound she could finally hear herself think. And what she thought, with a steady, rising certainty that burned away the humiliation, was enough. 2 days later, in the warm, cinnamon-dusted chaos of her grandfather's Brooklyn brownstone, the world felt real again. Here, the air smelled of pine sol, old books, and sofrito slowly simmering. The soundtrack was the percussive chop of a knife against a worn wooden board, the distant rumble of the Q train, and the soft, off-key humming of her grandfather, Leo. "Your face is like a thundercloud, mi corazón," Leo said without turning from the stove. He was 83, a stoic oak of a man who had fled Cuba with only his engineering degree and his wife's photograph. "Come, taste." Ilara leaned over the pot, the steam warming her face. "It's perfect, abuelo." "Nothing is perfect," he grunted, but his eyes crinkled. "It is, however, sufficiently resilient, like this family." The family, at that moment, was just the two of them and Ilara's teenage son, Mateo, who was upstairs lost in a digital universe of his own. Ilara's parents, dazzled by Bianca's glossy, moneyed world, found Leo's old-world ways quaint. They didn't understand the quiet fortress he had built, brick by brick, nor the empire he had nurtured from a single patent for a revolutionary microfilter used in semiconductor manufacturing. An empire they all benefited from, but only Ilara had ever taken the time to understand. She had been its quiet steward for a decade, the boring one with the MBA who handled the finances, the trusts, the silent, patient growth of Leo's 51% stake in Lior Tech, now worth just over $19 million. Bianca had the artist's loft, the famous friends, the lifestyle funded by dividends. Ilara had the spreadsheets, the passwords, and the profound, unshowy love for the man who had taught her that value isn't declared, it's built. Sitting at the Formica table that had seen generations of homework and heartaches, Ilara finally told him, not with tears, but with a flat, factual tone that worried him more. "She called me useless in front of everyone." Leo stirred the ropa vieja, the old clothes, transforming shredded beef into something rich and new. "Your sister," he said, "confuses noise for substance. A firework is useless in a blackout. A steady candle is not." He fixed her with his deep-set eyes. "What does your heart tell you to do?" "To protect what's real," she whispered. He nodded once, a benediction. The next morning, Ilara didn't go to her modest financial advisor's office. She worked from Leo's cluttered study, surrounded by models of bridges and faded blueprints. With a series of calm, irrevocable clicks, she executed the protocols she herself had designed. She froze the discretionary accounts that fed Bianca's and her parents' lifestyles, the ones she had administrative control over. Then she placed a call to the CEO of Lior Tech, a man who respected Leo and through him Ilara. "I'd like to initiate the sale of my grandfather's stake, the full $19 million, and I have his signed, notarized proxy right here." The world outside the brownstone erupted. Her phone lit up like a Christmas tree. First, her mother, hysterical, "How could you? We can't access anything." Then her father, blustering, "This is theft, Ilara." Then Bianca, incandescent with rage, "You bitter little worm, you're destroying this family." Ilara muted them all. The true family was in the kitchen, where Matteo had emerged, sensing a seismic shift. "Mom, what's going on?" "We're starting fresh, my love," Ilara said, pulling him into a one-armed hug. "How do you feel about that?" He shrugged, a teenager's classic move, but leaned into her. "Abuelo's cooking, so better than average." The sale went through with astonishing speed. The $19 million landed in a new trust, one with Ilara as the sole trustee, its purpose clear: to preserve and nurture the real family legacy. She paid off the brownstone, she set up a generous college fund from Matteo, she created an annuity that would ensure Leo's comfort and the comfort of the 2 home health aides who now came daily so he could remain in his home. And then, with the remaining capital, she did something that felt like breathing for the first time. She bought a small, struggling community cafe in their neighborhood. It was called the Steady Cup, and it was weeks from closing. The next 6 months were a symphony of everyday moments, a tapestry woven with exhaustion, flour, and profound joy. The grand reopening was not a glittering gala, but a Saturday morning where the 3 of them, Ilara, Matteo, and Leo in his wheelchair, wrapped in a blanket, stood behind the counter. Leo was the quality control. He tasted every batch of café con leche, his nod the only approval that mattered. Matteo, to his own surprise, became a social media whiz and the weekend barista, his awkwardness melting away as he learned to steam milk and chat with Mrs. Rabinowitz from next door about her cat. And Ilara? Ilara found her hands were not useless. They learned the weight of a full coffee portafilter, the perfect tamp, the gentle art of pouring a heart into latte foam. She kneaded dough for the medianoche sandwiches she added to the menu, using Leo's mother's recipe. She remembered birthdays. She saved a corner table for the group of retired teachers who came every Tuesday, and a high chair for the toddler twins whose exhausted parents just needed a place to sit for 20 minutes. The cafe became a hearth. It smelled of toasted cumin and espresso, of vanilla syrup and warm bread. It sounded like the hiss of the steamer, the low murmur of crossword puzzle collaborators, the laughter of students studying in the back. Ilara saw the whole of life there: first dates and quiet breakups, job interviews conducted on laptops, a young man practicing his wedding vows in a low voice by the window. One blustery March afternoon, the bell above the door chimed. Bianca stood there, wrapped in a designer coat that looked absurd against the worn hardwood floor. She seemed smaller, the defiant gloss sandblasted away by months of financial reality. Silence fell over the cafe. Matteo stopped wiping the counter. Leo looked up from his chessboard. Ilara's heart hammered against her ribs. She took a deep breath, the scent of cinnamon and community grounding her. "Can I get you something?" she asked, her voice steady. Bianca's gaze traveled over the blackboard menu, the mismatched chairs, the wall of photos showcasing regulars, the steady family. She saw their mother, who had started coming on Thursdays for the key lime pie, smiling in a way Bianca hadn't seen in years. She saw the profound, unassailable life in the room. Bianca's voice cracked. The word useless died in her throat, annihilated by the evidence of profound usefulness all around her. "A coffee, please. Just black." Ilara nodded. She ground the beans, the sound of familiar, comforting rhythm. She pulled the shot, a rich, dark ribbon. She placed the simple ceramic mug on the counter. On the house. Bianca's hand trembled as she took it. She took a sip, then her eyes, glistening, met Alara's. It's good. It's resilient, Alara said softly, echoing her grandfather. Like this family. Bianca didn't sit at the counter. She took her coffee to a small table in the corner, alone, a silent figure beginning, perhaps, to learn a new language. That blustery March afternoon, after closing, Ilara, Mateo, and Leo sat at their usual table, the one by the window. They were counting the day's takings, a modest pile of bills and coins, and sharing a slice of tres leches. The Sanchez order came in for the party tomorrow. Mateo tapped his tablet. 20 cubanos and a giant thermos of café con leche. Mrs. Gable says her sourdough starter is ready to share, Alara added, yawning. Leo looked at them, his granddaughter's hands now strong and capable, his great-grandson's shoulders filling out, no longer slumped in a digital world. The cafe around them was quiet, steeped in the day's warmth and the promise of tomorrow's dawn. You built a bridge, Leo said, his voice thick. Not with steel and concrete, but with café and kindness. You took the old clothes and made them new. Ilara reached across the table, taking his gnarled hand in her flour-dusted one. The $19 million had been a number, a weapon, a liberation. But this, the sticky table, the weary contentment in her bones, the steady rhythm of their shared breath, this was the real fortune. It was the belonging found not in glittering approval, but in the daily, durable act of building a hearth and tending its flame. It was a story written not in headlines, but in steamed milk and shared silence, a heartwarming testament to the resilience forged in everyday love.